So then last week or so, hit you up. Today's the day, less than 24 hours after you became one of the biggest talking points in pro wrestling, and may I officially welcome you to Wrestling Tribalism Hell. Congratulations.
Holy moly, geez Louise. It's a lot of emotion, it's a lot of upset people. It's a lot of fun. But listen, I'm used to this sort of thing. I remember back in 2009, I had like my first big moment where everyone was mad at me. I was talking about Mirko Cro Cop, UFC 199, this whole controversial thing, and everyone got no, not UFC 199, UFC 99. That's how long ago it was. And
different controversy for 199, if you remember all that. Right?
Exactly. That one's ingrained in my brain. But so it's all good. We could get into it, and like I said, it's funny because when you reached out to me, none of this was a thing, and you were just, so it's not like I'm coming on here to do a whole media tour about what I talked about on my show on Wednesday, because Lord knows I talked about it enough. But I do find a lot of the takes, especially from the people in media, to be very funny, because a lot of them are just completely ill-informed and very interesting to me. So, we could get into whatever you want. But yes, it was a very interesting thing because I talked about it. I don't look at Twitter during the show, but I glanced over midway and I was like, wow, this is crazy. I'm getting a ton of comments about the Tony Khan comment. Meanwhile, I talked about a million other things and had the pound-for-pound best fighter on the planet on, Alex Volkanovski, one of the most popular fighters on the planet, Kevin Holland. I had HB freaking K on, Shawn Michaels, and yet everyone's going crazy about this one little 5-minute segment.
Well, I think part of it, too, and I rewatched the whole thing today. I would urge people to watch the whole thing, not just the whole thing, but before and after, because you talk for probably about 8 minutes or so about WWE. This whole thing that really kind of paints a better picture, not just what happened. You got interneted. People take this last 10-second thing. They're like, this is the mea culpa. This is everything he thinks about this whole situation. So for those people who don't know, I don't know how they don't. During the opening Q&A segment, you asked a question about last week's 70-plus minute Tony Khan interview that dropped after Dynamite.
And please stress that I was asked. It's not like I came on and be like, I need to talk about my feelings. I heard, let's address the elephant in the room here for a moment, because I heard Dave and Bryan speak about this. And I thought that was comical. First of all due respect to two legends. I like them very much. They've been doing this way longer than me. Bryan multiple times says that he didn't watch the interview. Right. And then he goes on and says, if you don't like the answer, ask something else. Move on to something else. Bryan, that little part about CM Punk and the brawl maybe lasted 90 seconds. It was a 77-minute interview. I didn't harp on it. What I was talking about was asking about feelings regarding MJF, talking about contract. Cody Rhodes. How did you feel when he showed up, this guy that you had been in the trenches with for years? How did you feel when he showed up? What was your conversation like with Triple H, with Stephanie, with Nick Khan? Oh, no comment. The brawl thing, I see people talking about it, and honestly, I expect a little better from Bryan. The brawl thing literally lasted 90 seconds of a 77-minute interview. Right. So to preface your comments on me with I didn't watch the interview, and then B, continue to repeat that I was harping on this legal thing, which, by the way, I asked him a bunch of things like, how did you feel sitting up there hearing this? That's not a legal question. That's a feeling question. And there's a very easy way to dance around. By the way, earlier or later in the show, I had Chatri Citrotong on. There's a report out there that his company lost $110 million. Did he comment me? Did he say it won't serve me well to talk about this? No. He danced around it. He said this. He said that. There's a way to answer these questions. But fine. It's not me being upset. I was asked what I thought of the interview. I said it was a frustrating interview because he didn't want to explain anything about any type of feeling. I get that you can't talk about X, Y, and Z, but I'm asking feelings. I'm asking emotion. And then the other thing is, oh, but you just sat with Triple H a month ago and you didn't ask him about Vince McMahon. Well, first of all, I did ask about taking over for Vince. I did ask about what the philosophy changes. I did ask about NXT, getting pretty much, ruined over the past year and how he felt about that. I asked about those things. To ask him about Vince McMahon's controversies, allegations, whatever, what does he have to do with that? That would be like a coach replacing a coach who did really poorly and being like, or a coach getting Bobby Knight pushing a kid, and then the guy who replaces him at Indiana getting asked about Bobby Knight pushing the kid. No, you can ask about how you're going to change the team, how you're going to right the ship, how you're going to get back on track. But that's his allegation. That's his controversy. That's his situation and story. Why would I ask Triple H about that? And to equate the stuff that I asked Tony Khan about to the stuff that Vince McMahon is dealing with, if any quote-unquote journalist is going to make that comparison, I mean, you're not even worth my time at that point. You're saying those two things are the same? You're talking about a sexual allegation and, an improper relationship. You're comparing that to me asking about Cody Rhodes appearing at WrestleMania? What? Have you lost your mind? What is wrong with you people?
So a few things there. So to get this out, because some people, well, here's what people are saying. You're in, because of the BT Sport tie-in, they with WWE. The Ringer has a relationship with WWE.
And I refute those two things. Number one, I actually don't have a contract with BT anymore. My contract is up with them. So as of right this moment, I don't work for BT. That's number one.
Kidding. Okay.
Number two, I worked for ESPN, the broadcast partner of the UFC, for 3 years, right? Had Bellator guys on, had One Championship guys on, had Cage Warrior guys on. So to say just because I work for the broadcast partner makes me, biased or whatever. And by the way, you know who owns BT now? Warner Brothers Discovery,
right.
Which was hilarious about Tony talking about how ITV is better than BT when and then saying that Warner Brothers was better when in reality the guys who he's talking about being so great in America actually own BT. That's really getting into the weeds, and I know he was trying to dig at me there, but fine. I know people aren't supposed to know that, but what does it matter that I work for BT? It's like saying that someone who works for ESPN and covers the NBA is biased because the NBA is on ESPN. And then the Ringer thing, I don't cover wrestling for the Ringer. I have nothing to do with wrestling on the Ringer. And again, do your research. That's what's a little funny about this. I was on Simmons' podcast in July, and people from WWE hit me up like, gosh, you're really being hard on us. I said the product is no good. I said it's stale. I said Brock versus Roman for the 1 millionth time at SummerSlam is not interesting to me. And I said AEW is better, and I said MJF is the best thing in pro wrestling. So you want to pick and choose, fine, but I've been very fair. I went to the Arthur Ashe show 2 weeks ago. I had AEW guys on for 2 hours. I had Bronson on and I had MJF on the MMA hour. So it's nonsensical. These people are just trying to pick and choose what they want and be like, oh, God. The voiceover thing, Dave brought that up. I did the voiceover thing. It was fun. Daniel Cormier was involved. I didn't get paid for it. They offered. I said I don't want to get paid for it. I'll do it for fun. It's like appearing on a documentary or something like that. And if that bothers anyone, fine. I don't care. I don't have to answer to anyone. But I love pro wrestling, and right now I think that the WWE product is better. And if you disagree, great. That's what makes this fun. That's why it's great to have competition. That's why I think wrestling is better off than MMA, because there is no version of AEW and MMA. There's no feud there between the two factions, right? The two fan bases. So it's not that serious, if you ask me.
Did it cross your mind to ask Paul Levesque about the Triple H, the Vince allegations at all? Because he is his father-in-law. And such a huge story. Did it cross your mind going into it? You're kind of going through and thinking.
I did ask him about Vince.
But I mean, specifically.
What is the question? What's the question to ask him?
What was your reaction when this Wall Street Journal story came out?
And then what do you think he's going to say?
Well, wouldn't it be similar to the Tony Khan thing, where at least you're asking the question to try to get, even if it's a non-response?
What is the thing that I asked Tony Khan that is comparable to the thing that you're saying to ask Triple H about?
I wouldn't say comparable in terms of the subject matter, because
that's what people are saying, right? That's what people are saying. They're saying you didn't ask this. You lobbed softballs to Triple H. Meanwhile, when the Triple H interview came out, I felt like it was universally praised. Like, oh, you asked him about NXT being, so. But now all of a sudden, in retrospect, because I asked Tony Khan about how he felt when Cody Rhodes showed up. How do you feel when MJF is talking about his contract, which became a huge story because apparently it didn't get cleared with PR? Is that really such a bad question to ask? By the way, I don't think I was hard on Tony at all. I actually think that it was a fairly sort of amicable, friendly interview. I don't think I asked one hard question there. I could have asked, how's their financial situation? What's going on there? I didn't ask anything of that sort. How's your, how are your losses for 2021? How's it looking for? I didn't ask about any of that sort of thing. So I don't think any a sexual relationship allegation that has nothing to do with Triple H is something. And by the way, if you think I should have asked that question to Triple H, fine. Guess what? I'm my toughest critic. After that Triple H interview, I hated it. I was actually mad after that Triple H interview.
Really? Why?
Every single interview I do, I'm mad at myself. You stumbled there. You didn't ask this. I'm not some freaking god of journalism. I'm always mad at myself. I could tell you about 10 things I hated about yesterday's show. I could tell you 10 things I hate about this interview right now, about me, the way I choose my words. The way
Come on.
The point is, like,
Yeah.
I do this. I do 1,000 interviews, every couple months, right? There's 16 or so guests on my show a week, right, between the two shows. I miss things every single interview. So if you guys think that I should have asked this and didn't ask this, but this whataboutism after the fact, oh, you asked him about this and didn't ask about this, like, all right, fine, okay. I'm not saying I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. Go ahead. Pick it apart all you want. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm glad you're talking about it. And I personally don't think it's a fair comparison. And if you want to like dissect my interview, process or my questions or my delivery or my approach, then cool. I'm glad that people care enough about my content that they're even talking about this. There was once a time where no one cared about it. So
Yep. Looking back at the Tony Khan interview, would you have employed? You talked about hating things that I think anyone that does this medium is like, I wish I'd done this or done this.
Yeah.
Would you have employed a different strategy? Like, do you go into, because you're obviously very well researched when it comes to this stuff. Had you listened to Tony Khan interviews before to kind of know he does this filibustering promotion style and just kind of loops around and says the same thing kind of over and over again?
Yeah. Listen, I mean, I heard Dave say it himself. He's had some frustrating interviews with him or some not so enjoyable. What I guess I was trying to do was kind of break through the monotony of the promotion, right? Like, just it feels like sometimes he gets into the script. And by the way, I've never met Tony Khan in person, and as I said on the show, I have no personal gripe with him. I'm a huge anyone who knows me and has been listening to me and has been watching me knows that I am all about options, competition, free agency. Like, this is what I've always been about, right? So I think what they're doing is great, and I think it's incredible for the wrestling business what they've done, and I'm a fan of the product. Like I said, I would talk on that same segment how I enjoy coming home on a Wednesday and watching Dynamite. I'm a fan. They just hired Renee Paquette. Great. There's a lot of great wrestling. Like, this is not me. I just didn't like the interview. I didn't enjoy it. It felt to me like he had his guard up. If you're going to say no comment to a whole bunch of stuff, like you want to say no comment, hey, we have a legal situation. By the way, they haven't even commented on the situation.
That's the thing, right? Because people are so focused on, this is the AEW tribalism water carriers, right? They have a legal situation. They can't talk. How many legal situations are happening in our world right now where people at least say something? They're not like, can't talk. They at least say, to your point earlier, promoters do this. Anyone does this. There's a way to talk about it and have some sort of comment, some sort of feeling without giving all the facts, all this. I mean, sheriffs and police people do this all the time. Like, there's a legal situation impending, but they're able to at least give some sort of humanistic response. And I think that's kind of what you were looking for and you didn't get.
I mean, what's the most famous trial of the last, 50 years? The OJ trial. Right. Those dudes were talking about it every day for a year.
Right.
Obviously, there's certain things you can't talk about. But again, you could say, hey, I ask you, okay, what were you thinking in the moment when all this was unfolding in front of your eyes following a really big night for the company? Listen, I don't want to get into it too much. I appreciate the fact that you have to ask something to this effect, but obviously I didn't love it. Who would love that? Who would love that? I have a lot of respect for Punk. I love Punk. I love the people he was talking about. I wish it didn't go as far as it did. I wasn't happy about that, and it's something that we're going to deal with internally. And I'm confident that we're going to figure this out, and that everyone will be able to work together in harmony, something like that.
Yeah.
But to say no comment, and then later on, I asked him, why can't you even comment on the Cody Rhodes situation, like how you felt when you were sitting there? Yeah, man. I have to be honest. I was in the trenches with that guy, and it felt weird. I'm not going to lie. It felt weird seeing him show up. But I'm happy for him. I'm happy for his family. And you know what? This is a crazy business, and who knows? Somewhere down the line, we may work together. It's a very, work together again. It's a very small world, but to just be like, I'm not going to talk about it. That's what I was saying. And it wasn't like I was mad. This was a week ago. I had forgotten about it. But again, why I wanted you to repeat that, someone asked me about it. It wasn't like I came on the show to talk crap about it. Right. And I heard Dave say, I have a lot of frustrating interviews, and I don't talk about it. Sure. You don't think, 50% of the interviews I have every week on the show are not so good or frustrating. No one asks me about them, so I don't bring it up. Someone asked me about this, so I talked about it.
Right. Yeah, my problem with listening to that this morning from Dave and Bryan is when someone says, I haven't heard it or I've heard clips,
I mean, come on.
It disqualifies it for me. It just, you can't I don't think.
And Bryan was so fired up. He was so fired up, like, move on, move on, move on. I'm like, dude, that part lasted 90 seconds. Like, I literally asked him about that. I don't even know if it lasted 90 seconds. And then I moved on. It was a 77-minute interview. We talked about a lot of positive things that they've done.
Right.
So what are you getting all fired up about something you didn't even watch clearly and don't really know about?
Right. And there's also the aspect of the audience and knowing that you did that, not necessarily, you knew you were going to get a wrestling audience, but there's also non-wrestling fans that are going to watch that. And, Bryan's saying, there's a million things to talk about. How many of those things are going to be interested to that casual audience that's tuning in? Like, oh, let's check out this guy, like the crossover,
Sure.
that came to mind as well, is that you can't just do insider stuff for the whole interview or else people are going to be like, I don't get what's happening now,
But also, I did ask about those million things. How do you divide your day from, I've never really heard him talk about that. He has 3 massive jobs, Fulham, Jaguars, AEW, not to mention the other stuff that he does. I have no idea how this man sleeps. So I was curious about that. I was curious about the growth of the company. 3 years since, Dynamite launched, all that stuff. We talked about a lot of this stuff, his philosophy on who he signs. Obviously, we got into the New Japan thing. And then he says he's never met Nick Khan. And then he said he
that was
spoke to him on
weird,
the
right?
phone. And I was like, all right, fine. You didn't meet him in person, but you spoke to him. What was that about? Can't tell you. What about Triple H and Stephanie? Can't tell you. Why? I mean, if you met them pre-AEW, you'd be like, oh, yeah, I saw him at a function one day. I don't know. Like, why is it so secretive? I don't know. The whole thing was a little bit bizarre to me.
It is weird. Kind of wrap up. How was your experience at your first AEW show at Grand Slam?
I enjoyed it. Obviously I was there primarily to watch Action Bronson. I don't get to go to a lot of things just because, that was a Wednesday after my show. The AEW product, I'll say, like, I was watching the action and then I was watching the screen, and I don't know if anyone cares about this sort of thing, but they have this camera angle, and I think they only really used it for that show, correct me if I'm wrong, where it's on a dolly. The camera's on a dolly, so it's like level with the ring, and there's a guy operating the camera and he's moving side to side. That is a beautiful shot. I love that shot. I was like, wow, this is another way of showing. So they're doing a lot of fun, innovative things. Obviously, I've said this multiple times, a big fan of MJF. I think he's incredible. I got to see the Acclaimed win their tag titles. That was pretty damn cool. I thought Action was amazing. I saw Great Muta return. Saw Sting. Saw Darby Allin. I mean, like, I've been watching pro wrestling since 1985. I rented WrestleMania 1 from my local video store. I was at the Screwjob. I was at WrestleMania 18. I've been watching this form of entertainment, whatever you want to call it, for a very long time. I'm passionate about it, like all these fans online. And they can say whatever they want about, whose side I'm on and whatnot. Look, I can't apologize for the fact that I used to work with Nick Khan. I didn't know he was going to end up being the co-CEO of WWE. Who would have ever predicted that? That's not the reason why I hired him as my agent in 2015. But so what am I supposed to do? Not be friends with him anymore? Not have the guy freaking negotiated my contract with ESPN. What am I supposed to do about that? I mean, he then took another turn in his life. It's like, oh, wow, you're here now. But my feeling is, just like my feeling was 6 months ago, the WWE product is better now than it was back then. 6 months ago, you would have asked me which am I enjoying more. I would have said AEW. Right now, I feel like WWE is the superior product, and in 6 months, that could change again.
Sure.
I just don't know how you can argue against that. I just think they're on fire right now, and maybe it's a honeymoon period, but Bray Wyatt coming back, all the stuff that they're doing is great. Do I love everything? No, but I think the Sami Zayn stuff is tremendous. The storylines in terms of like all the different factions, the way the belts feel more important is great. Right now, I'm enjoying it more. If you disagree with that, that's okay. I think we could all still be friends. Yeah,
I would say so. Two final questions about this.
No
Have you heard from AEW at all since this?
No, I don't really. I know Kevin Sullivan, who's a backstage producer or a segment producer, always been very kind to me. I think he used to work for TNA back in the day.
Yes. Yep.
When Moxley had a cage match early on in the pandemic, I think it was March of 2020. I forget who he went up against.
Are you talking about Jake Hager, the Jake
Yes.
Hager Wardlow MMA fight, almost like a fight pit type match? But yeah,
Yeah, wasn't it a Moxley versus Hager?
actually, they did. Yes, they also did something similar.
Yeah.
Yes,
I remember I remember Moxley being involved, but yes, thank you. And so they asked me to do like a prediction video for that.
Yes.
So, I did it happily. I thought it was cool. I enjoyed it. Kevin was the one who asked me to do it. That was the first time I had ever had any kind of interaction with Tony. And I've had some AEW guys on the show in the past, and obviously would love to have them in the future. We had Bryan Danielson on, JDS, Dan Lambert on a couple times.
Yeah.
When it kind of makes sense. I try not to stray too far away from MMA on that show. But obviously, on my like personal YouTube, obviously MJF in studio. So yeah, all to say, the only person that I really talked to there is one of their PR guys who's always been super nice to me. And we even talked after the interview, all good. But long story short, no, I have not heard from anyone.
got it. And have you reached out to CM Punk at all?
Have I reached out to CM Punk at all? Regarding what? This
This whole situation since September.
how should I haven't talked to Punk in a while.
Okay.
Last time I spoke to him was maybe March, April, and I told him I missed him, I loved him, and I hope that he's happy. Punk and I, we did those interviews. I consider him, I think he's one of the greatest of all time. But yeah, I have not reached out to him, and I don't know if there's like some sort of, because now you're the BT sport guy, and by the way, I love all the shine that BT is getting. Like all of a sudden, everyone cares about the UK broadcasters so much here in America. Right. I love it. Good for them. They're the best. I hope we come to an agreement on a new deal because I've enjoyed working with them very, very much. But no, I haven't reached out to him, and the reason I didn't reach out after all this was I just figured the world is reaching out. And the truth is, if I could be honest with you, I don't consider myself a wrestling journalist.
Yep.
Obviously, I don't do the day-to-day beat stuff that you guys do. And so I figure that so many people are reaching out. If the same story happened in MMA, I'm the first guy to reach out. But where's my platform really to do this? Like I could do it on the personal YouTube channel, fine, but I don't really consider myself. And maybe that's why like doing the VO thing or the BT thing, whatever, doesn't feel weird to me because I've never considered myself a wrestling journalist. I don't want to be a wrestling journalist.
Sure.
I've never had aspirations of being a wrestling journalist. I love it. I love interviewing them. I think I do a pretty good job interviewing them, despite the fact that people don't like some of my questions. I think the stuff that we've done over the past year with BT have been great. And by the way, the vast majority of those interviews with the broadcast partner of WWE, I've asked about AEW. I asked Heyman about AEW. Mm-hmm. I asked Nick Khan about AEW. I asked... who else did I ask about AEW, about the competition? There was one recently as well. Well, obviously, I spoke to Charlotte Flair about her husband being
Seth
over
Rollins?
there. Did we talk about AEW? I don't remember.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah,
you brought it up. Yeah.
I talked to AJ Styles about the competition. Anyways, so, it's all very weird to me because I feel like I've been pretty down the middle, but everyone got really mad about this one.
I know.
By the way, can I just say, it was a crappy interview on my part, too. Like, I'm saying maybe I should have done a better job. So, it takes two to tango. Maybe I wasn't charismatic enough. Maybe I didn't, I didn't like elicit a good enough response or good enough responses with my questions. I don't know. I'll take the blame, okay? You can take the bullets and your guns and point them my way.
One final question, this about MMA. This statement, true or false? UFC business has never been bigger, but there have never been as few stars as there are now.
Well, do we consider, is Conor still active?
That's a great question. I'd say no at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the first part of your statement is 100% accurate. Business is booming. They're doing great. The pay-per-views are great. The numbers are great. I can't imagine. I mean, the gate is great. The ticket sales are great. All that. I don't know. I guess it's like, what's your definition of a star? Because I see a lot
Great question. Yeah.
I see a lot of very talented people. I think Volkanovski's a star in Australia. I think Izzy's a star in Oceania. I think Oliveira is clearly a star in Brazil. I mean, look at just his social media and the attention that he gets. I think people still love Amanda Nunes. I think, Figgy is the champion at 125, and they tried to kill that division, and he's, kind of a big deal. I think Aljo's done a great job of building himself up. So I don't know if I agree with the second half of your statement. Is there this transcendent household name that the world just can't get enough of, like a Conor McGregor? No, but how often does a Conor McGregor come around? I think people get too fixated on like these mainstream stars in MMA, when in reality the roster is super talented. There's a lot of interesting characters. You got the Patties of the world coming up. You got the Hamzats of the world coming up. You've got the Bo Nichols of the world coming up. They're just fine. There's nothing to worry about on the UFC side of things, if you ask me.
All right. No, you got to get out of here. One quick thing.
Sure.
I'm looking forward to your end of year MMA recap with John Pollock on Post Wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
I love those every year.
He's going to ask me.
Oh,
I don't know.
Always the tough questions. Love
He's
John.
going to ask me, will Tony Khan be on your show in 2020? Anyway, I'm such a glutton for punishment. I would do another Tony Khan interview today. Also, I love the awkwardness, right? So if there's a little bit of awkwardness there, like now, if I said, and then he wants to come on and we talk about it, but I don't know if that's going to happen, if I'm being honest.
Well, he's coming to New Jersey next month for Full Gear, the pay-per-view. Right. Yeah.
Should I go show up at the Prudentials? In person would be fun.
Yeah.
I should do that. He should come in studio.
Yes.
We can air out our differences.
Yes.
Come on. You tell me. Do you think he likes me?
I don't know. I don't know. My sense is
he definitely looks at me with a bit of a, I'm not so sure if I should trust this guy look, right?
Yeah, there's something there. I think he's in. I've noticed over the past year and listening to like dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of hours of interviews with him, that his guard is way more up than it used to be, and he likes more promotional style versus in-depth back and forth interviews. Like he even does it with Dave too. He does the same kind of. It's tough to wrangle him in when he loops around the promotional thing, and let's just get to the meat of it.
Yes, tonight on TBS, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. By the way, can I tell you one more thing? Like,
of course.
Under the radar or whatever you want to say, off the record. No, but this is on the record. So I do stuff for Real Sports.
Yes.
Now, HBO Real Sports. The first story that I pitched them, and I pitched to them maybe like 3 or 4 different times in different ways, because I signed with them in November, but the first thing I ended up doing was in May. First profile story of any kind was on Tony Khan, and then they said, yeah, we like it, but we don't do a lot of wrestling. Also, HBO, Warner Brothers, it's all, there's a conflict of interest there. Will it look like we're promoting them? I didn't really think of that, but I understood it. Then I tried to like pitch, what if it's like on this little train or engine that's trying to take down the 400-pound gorilla, still the same conflict. What if it's on the Khan family? Now they've done a story on his father.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure they did it on him, or it might have been E60, but I know a big profile on him. He's had a fascinating life, and so I was like, well, it's just about this kid kind of doing his own kid. He's my age, but like doing his own thing. It didn't work, but that's like the interest that I had in him and his story, and I asked him to. I asked this PR guy to do interviews multiple times, and I was turned down. And then this time they reached out to me. So I just wanted to clear that up, or at least, share that the first thing that I pitched when I was hired by Real Sports was a profile on Tony Khan. I don't know if he would do it now.
Yeah.
But that would have been an interesting one.
Well, hopefully you can make it happen for Newark, or in November when they come to Newark. They're going to be there for a couple of nights. There's no reason you can't get an Uber
Full
over.
gear, baby. Can't wait.
That's right. Also glad to this past year, big one for you. You and Luke Thomas are good again. I'm glad to see that, thanks to the
it's a lot of mending of fences.
Reconciliation of Brian Campbell. He
That's
did
right.
it.
He brought us together.
He did.
He brought us together.
And next time we talk, I'm going to tell you a good John Schneider story that you can take with you next time you see him. Yes.
Is he a wrestling fan?
No, I used to work for their AA affiliate in New Hampshire, Manchester, New Hampshire. I used to do that. And I'll tell you right now.
The Mudcats or something?
Fisher Cats.
Fisher Cats, yeah.
So they were getting blown out one night, and he had to come in to pitch. They were losing like 18-2, rain-soaked game, all this stuff. We turned up upstairs. We turned up the radar gun. So when he was throwing, it showed up as 97, 98 miles an hour, and he kept looking up at the scoreboard and looking at it like, I can't be throwing that hard. So just to kind of have fun with it, we did that.
That's amazing.
So, yeah,
what a nice guy.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
By the way, I'd love to know what you wanted to actually talk to me about before all this happened.
Oh, I want to ask you about your AEW in-person experience.
Okay.
I wanted to ask about trying to get the interview with Tony Khan, because at that point it hadn't even happened yet.
Right.
And all of a sudden, like the next day, this comes out, and and some of the other, a couple of the other things, and also WWE interviews as well, and all that.
One question for you: Which product is better right now?
In what sense?
What's the better product? What's the more entertaining product right now?
I still find it hard to get into WWE for the amount of hours you have to commit per week. That's 5 hours.
In a vacuum, pay-per-view versus pay-per-view, who's putting on the better product right now?
Pay-per-views, I will go AEW because I prefer the in-ring product a little bit more. They're long. I prefer the production of WWE better. I will say that having watched this past weekend most of Extreme Rules, there ups and downs, but the stuff that I really got into I was like, this is the way it felt. WWE felt years ago, prior to Vince. So that's a beautiful thing, and just the fact that we can have this conversation about two entities, let alone the Impacts of the world, the New Japans of the world, the GCWs of the world. That's right.
Shout out to my guy Joey. We'll talk. That's a beautiful thing, right? That's what we want. As an MMA sort of lifer now, whatever you want to call me, I wish we had these kinds of options in MMA, right? I wish we could say like, oh man, Bellator going up against UFC tonight. Who's going to win? Who's the better? It doesn't exist. So I'm envious of you guys that I could even like talk about wrestling in this regard. So I think wrestling fans are being served tremendously well. There's something for everyone. And if you don't like my opinion on it, great. If you don't like the interviews, great. I'm sure your next favorite wrestling interviewer is going to ask all the questions that you want asked.
Exactly. Well, thank you much for the time. Appreciate it greatly.
Thanks,
we'll just talk to you soon. Actually, go ahead and plug. Where should people see you, feel you, and all that stuff?
You can just find me on social media, and then you can find me on all the Freakazoid Twitter accounts that rip my stuff and don't even follow me and take my stuff out of context. Love you guys.